All right, let's see what we can get to here for Arkansas recruiting. We had the decommitment of Landon Rogers, but Arkansas also gets pretty big pickup out of Georgia and Chris Paul. What's more important here for what happened over the last few days?
Well, I think both things are important, but starting with Landon Rogers. So he was offered the day after Arkansas offered Lucas Coley, and maybe they didn't expect him to immediately commit, but Rogers immediately committed, even though Lucas the day before was incredibly excited to get his offer. I don't know if Landon really thought through being in a two-quarterback class, but he was the first one in, so maybe he didn't have to think about it. Coley was down to come in and compete with whoever, but it just seems to me that Landon is looking for somewhere where, he'll have a better opportunity to see the field, and anytime you have two quarterbacks in a class, your chances of seeing the field go down. Not too big of a deal. You'll have John Stephen Jones, KJ Jefferson, Malik Hornsby, and Lucas Coley all on campus. So I feel like for most schools, that's enough. I know Arkansas, you kind of want more because then your chances of getting a really good one are higher. But most schools get away with one quarterback a class. Christopher Paul, I was so impressed with him. He was offered just like 6 days before he committed, but he had a long relationship with Coach Pittman and Coach Scott Fountain, and they just immediately convinced him that this is where he needs to be, even though he's never visited. He's a 3-star out of Georgia, and already really big, 6'1", 235 is what he's listed at. But his coach told me he's been eating pretty well during this coronavirus, and he's actually 247 right now, so he'll have to bring that back down probably.
So where are we on commits? Is it at 13, or with Rogers' decommitment is it to 12 now?
With Rogers' decommitment, it is at 12, but I kind of, in the back of my mind, have Jaquaylin Crawford, the Oklahoma transfer, as part of this class because his scholarship will count towards them. So they have 12, but it's technically 13 if you are going by, the total of 25, which they're allowed to have.
Got a listener that texted in. Mike in Fort Smith wants to bet you a Sixer that the Hogs get Rayshon Benny. So I guess the question would be, what do you think the chances are of getting Rayshon Benny, and what kind of Sixer do you like, Nikki?
I'd probably go with a nice Black Apple Crossing cider. Any of those flavors are really, really good, but I really like the blueberry. But as far as Rayshon Benny goes, he is a huge offensive lineman out of Michigan, a 4-star, one of the top 100 prospects in the nation. I know that he wants to get down to Arkansas to visit, but I'm not sure Arkansas will have the stuff to land a guy like that at this point. I think Sam Pittman's got to have at least a season under his belt before we start seeing the top 100 type guys commit to him. So I like that they're at least going to have a chance with him, but similar to, I think it was Broderick Jones was his name last year. I just don't think that he's going to put Sam Pittman above, a more winning program at the moment.
We're speaking to Nikki Chavanelle here on Halftime. Nikki, there was a good piece on Hogbeat that you were talking about a couple days ago or early this morning also. I'll focus on offense first, and then we'll transition to defense. Where should the Razorbacks focus offensively right now as far as in recruiting?
Yeah, so I wrote about it yesterday because, does Arkansas need to take another quarterback? My evaluation was no, really. Maybe they'll change their minds once they see what they've got with Malik Hornsby and KJ this season. But for now, I don't think they need another one. They do need one more wide receiver, and it is very painfully obvious that there's one guy that the staff wants more than anyone else, and that's Roy City 4-star wide receiver Keyshawn Jackson. But he's got some in-state schools pulling for him as well. So it's going to be a battle there, and then tight end is really where they need to focus. You have Aaron Outley, the in-state tight end, who wants to, visit some more programs before making a choice, but I still think he ends up picking Arkansas in the end, and he could see a boost to his rating. He's a 3-star right now, but I think they need one more as well. And if they could find a transfer, that would be great, because maybe someone with a little bit more experience to join Hudson Henry next season. But otherwise, they've offered a few others as well. Offensive line, they could afford to take one more. I'm just not sure that they're like really pushing any offensive linemen at this point. Kind of wait and see how visits go later, if and when they happen. And then defensively, you have no defensive line commits, so you got to start working on that. But the number one defensive tackle target is Cameron Ball out of Georgia, and I know all the commits are after him. So far, anytime the commits get really set on a guy, they have committed. So I would like to see Cameron Ball commit, I don't know, in the next couple months. But he also said he wants to get some visits in. And then I think that they need to eventually find a kicker for this class. A.J. Reed, the transfer from Duke, will be gone after his 1 year here. So I think that spending a scholarship on a really, really good kicker would benefit Arkansas.
Later in the show here, we're going to talk about Patrick Mahomes with that new, just ridiculously expensive contract that the Kansas City Chiefs gave him yesterday. But it's crazy just to think, when you look at it from a whole, what was the first thing that went through your mind when you saw $500 million deal for Patrick Mahomes?
I mean, for Kansas City, that just seems like a smart move. He's great. He's done a lot for you already. He's going to be your franchise guy for many years to come. He strikes me as a guy worth that money based on what he's already done with his career and his attitude. I know he gets a lot of, I feel like he gets slack for being like this nice guy, but definitely I think the type of person you want as the face of your program.
We had a text in here from Shane. Wanted to know if you might have heard anything about Dorian Gerald, whether he's healthy. I know he had the strained artery in his neck that cost him last season. Do you know anything about Gerald's situation? Is he healthy? Is he participating in activities?
Yeah, he got cleared for the winter conditioning, and the coaching staff said that he did really well. So I'm not expecting anything crazy like that to happen again. To my knowledge, it's not like something that's expected to like pop up again. It was kind of a one-time thing. So as long as he's been cleared, and he has, everything should be good. And I would expect him to push for playing time in his last year. He was looking really good before he went down last year. So I think that, if he's up to speed enough, which I think he will be, he'll probably sit at one of the ends across from Mateo Soli, probably.
Nikki, we talk so much about whether or not there's going to be a college football season on time, or whether it's postponed to the spring or even canceled in the most dire of situations. We talk all about college football. We haven't really gone much into high school football, and you focus on that so heavily, dealing with the recruits. But I think we also have to look at the idea that could be a possibility as well. And man, I mean, kids right now are held back, in education, because learning at home is much different than being in school. You talk about athletes and how that they develop. You may end up with an entire class of not just football players, but student athletes overall that really don't develop for almost an entire year. I'm talking about skills and knowledge of how to play the game. I just think that's one of the things that high school athletes are going to be facing in the next few months too.
Yeah, I don't want to think about it too much, but because it's just so sad. But yeah, it'll be tough for a lot of kids. I mean, some kids do better in an environment where there aren't as many distractions around. But for a lot of kids, football, being able to be eligible for football and all that kind of stuff, like, it forces them to work harder in school and, kind of feel like maybe it's not how they should view it, but I know when I was in high school, going to practice at the end of the day was the best part of my day. So it makes you work harder in school. And these kids, especially for recruiting, you're going to see a lot of bad evaluations, I think, because if you're just going off the highlight tapes, then you're going to have a higher percentage of misses. But also, a lot of schools will be attacking, the more surefire-looking kids, and, those aren't always right, but also the kids that are usually sleepers who get found later or they're late bloomers, those guys will probably miss a big opportunity while schools are battling it out with each other for the more obvious talents.
Yeah, I don't want to think about it either. I just have to, in my own mind, try to be realistic, which sometimes, unfortunately, includes pessimism along with optimism whenever you can feel it. Nikki, appreciate the thoughts and your time as always. Thank you so much. Looking forward to doing it again next week.
Thanks, y'all. See ya.
You got it. Nikki Chavanelle, Rivals.com.